Hello and welcome to Got Kids. I'm your host, Maureen Nunn. Got Kids is a show that focuses on parenting, and we learn tips about how to raise productive, successful, and happy children. When we're born, babies don't come with instructional manuals, so it's up to us, parents, to learn what works and what truly doesn't work in parenting, and then to be the best role models that we can be, and also to be the best parents. My very special guest today is Jody Pastel, who is the principal of Cornerstone Elementary School. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We are going to talk about a lot of things, specifically about effective communication tips between parents and students, or parents and children. We're also going to be talking about, you've been in education your whole life, so that's a story in itself. Also, how to develop leadership, respect, responsibility, manners, and a sense of humor in students as well, and also in raising children. And then I like what you had said about developing the whole child. Not just half the child, but developing the whole child. So I'm so excited about this, Jody, and thank you so much again.
Well, I'm excited too. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit with our viewers.
This is really great. So even though you were born in Ohio, you've spent most of your life since actually 1956 when you were one year old.
Actually, I was 5, but we won't. Okay.
So you spent most of your life in Southern California and really been involved, if not only raising your 4 children, but then in education. So take us back to the early days when you actually started into education.
All right. Well, back in the 1950s, I was the first class of Silver Spur Elementary School.
Yay!
I remember when that school was built, and my brothers and I attended, and I remember my parents saying how fortunate we were to be in Palos Verdes. At that time, there's only one way up and down the hill, and that was over by the district office. Hawthorne wasn't here, Crenshaw wasn't here. It was a different time then, and my mom used to say, gosh, here we are living in these open fields, and then before you knew it, more and more building occurred. But back then, even in the 50s, the Palos Verdes School District was very outstanding.
And you started off by being involved in PTA, and then you were the vice principal.
Well, here's what happened. As I went to college in Colorado and knew from day one as a college student I wanted to go into education. So I came back and graduated in December of '73 and came back and started teaching bilingual education downtown LA in 1974.
Vamos a hablar en español porque tú lo hablas también.
I know, usted habla muy bien. And so anyway, and was involved with education from that day forward. I was married in 1977, and we had 4 children pretty quickly. And at that point, we decided if I could stay home for a while when the kids were little, that's what we would do. So it was at that time that I did become PTA president and ran the library and did all of those sort of things, being involved with our 4 children until the youngest was in kindergarten, and then I went back to work full time.
So going back to, because I have 5 grown children, you have 4 grown children, so we have 9 children between us. And I would ask you, going back to when you were raising 4 children and working, how, and no, excuse me, no help, how did you do it?
My parents lived on the East Coast at the time, so we really did not have any help. We started with our children at very young ages to instill in them a sense of responsibility. In the Pastel home, this is how we do things. And it was a little difficult sometimes because they would talk to friends. Well, you know, they get to go here, or they have someone special coming into the house. And we would always say, you know, isn't that wonderful? But in the Pastel house, here's how we do it.
Okay, I'm taking notes. All right, so you start by saying, and this is the way we do it in our home. Good one.
And my girls learned how to cook. Even my sons learned how to cook, but the girls learned first, I have to tell you. And we, our priorities were doing things as a family, not so much having a beautiful home, not so much having all of the extras. It was more time spent together as a family.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is really good, making family time. And especially with, you have four grown children from 23 to 30, so you had them rather quickly as well. And then worked at home, but then went back to the workforce when the kids got into school.
Yes, I started teaching elementary school when our youngest was in kindergarten. And then I moved to Palos Verdes Intermediate as a Spanish teacher and math teacher.
So you have right and left brain.
Yeah, they kind of aren't. They kind of fight over each other all the time. But and then I went into administration after about 8 years of teaching at Palos Verdes Intermediate School. Mm-hmm. And I was an assistant principal at PV Intermediate, and then became principal at Cornerstone back in '99.
You said when you were in Colorado that you knew right then that you wanted to do something, that your passion was education and the whole child. How did that happen?
I really believe it happened, first of all, from my own upbringing. I've always loved being with children and playing school like so many of our boys and girls like to do. But I also had great professors that took the time to ask a whole lot of questions. The inquiry, it wasn't about just the book learning. It was, how can you really make a difference? And what is your legacy going to be? What is important?
Good
And
one.
that kind of thinking hit home with me. And it just kind of grew from there. I constantly think with the end in mind. Where am I going? How am I going to get there? And what's important? And then constantly revisit where we are along that path.
Well, one of the things that you were interested in doing this year too was in instilling leadership, responsibility, respect, and manners. Those are 4 huge things, and you're not only dealing with the student, but you're also dealing with the parent, and you're dealing with the teacher. And how in the world do you make all of this work?
It sounds so simple because when we read in journals and educational research, sounds like, you know, you can build respect, you can build leadership, manners, you can do all of that pretty simply, but it isn't. It isn't a simple task. It's something that is done over time with an excellent school culture. And that school culture begins with teachers, and I happen to have an outstanding staff, and I couldn't be more proud of all of their efforts from day one till, you know, the kids leave the school in 5th grade. And then the parents, I have all of the support that anybody could ever want as an administrator. And then the children. So working with all of them and making sure that they have opportunities to know how to become a leader and how to problem solve and how to be an effective listener. All of those things, once you kind of put them in place and develop those skills, it's amazing the great things that happen at a school site.